have the pleasure of having you here for this is very unique kind of presentation. It's just like a first-hand information coming from Africa. Yes, we teach Africa, but now we have an African topic here. So I think that's, so Professor Valerie, she's a professor, she's a full professor in her university, and she's a very good scholar. Actually, she wrote a lot, and her field of research basically agricultural extension and development. Then added to that feminism. Then added to that a lot of development also. And then how all of these, since she's dealing with agriculture and dealing with agricultural extension, those who do not know what is agricultural extension is that she is the one who is mediator between the scientists and the resource users and the farmers. So a lot of things is being done into the agricultural labs with new varieties of crops and things like that. So in order to get it down to the farmers, you need a mediator. You need someone to go and talk to the people. What is the benefit? What is so and so? How to do that? How to cultivate that? That is agricultural extensionist also. So since she had that background, scientific and social background, she is now telling us about the implication of climatic change, which we all know. We all know that it's going to affect the life of those people and how the people did some sort of adaptation to that, especially women, and how they are dealing with that. So I would like to welcome her, and now I give you the floor.
Hi everybody, good afternoon. I'm happy to be here. This is my first time in Hunter College, and it's a privilege to be speaking with you. The chair of my department is here, Dr. Tamar Rottenberg. And then we also have Professor Andrew Rowan from the English department. He's been my guide since I came to the US and make sure I don't miss my win. So today we'll be talking about the implications of climate change in Africa, and then using Nigeria as a case study. We all know that climate change. We talk about the average change in the climate situation in the weather over a period of time. Most likely over 10 years and above. And scientists have told us a lot of things about climate change, which a lot of us are already aware of. So I'm not going to go into most of those now. But one of the things we've been told by scientists is that climate change will have differential impacts on different people. So we are going to have a situation of different folks, different strokes. While in some places it will be very dry, in some other areas it's also going to be very wet. So while some people will be thinking of, dehydration, others will be thinking of how they'll be going to the bathroom more often because of too much water that is in their system, because of flooding and all of that. So it's not going to have the same kind of impact on everybody. But climate change will definitely have impact on everybody. But how will be different depending on the region where you are, depending on your level of infrastructures, depending on the kind of farming, the agriculture you've been practicing, whether you're depending solely on rain-fed agriculture or whether you're using irrigation and all that. But the truth is it's going to affect everybody, but differently. In Nigeria, I've been part of a project called BNRCC. It's called Building Nigeria's Response to Climate Change. It was a 5-year project sponsored by CEDA Canada, and it was being implemented by NEST, Nigerian Environmental Study and Action Group. And then the project consisted of several components. And we had the research components, we had the climate change awareness campaign, community-based pilot adaptation efforts, and the development of a national adaptation strategy. We covered 20 states in Nigeria. Nigeria has 31 states. So we covered 20 states in Nigeria, and we divided Nigeria into two, the north and the southern region, and make sure that both areas, both sections of the country was well covered. And it's worthy to note that some of the states that we covered were already environmentally fragile. They already had a lot of issues with the environment even before we started talking about climate change. Another thing that we need to note is also that infrastructures in Nigeria, the infrastructure development in Nigeria is not like what you have in the US. So with that at the back of our mind, let's look at some of the, okay, this is a map showing us some of the areas. Here you have the Niger Delta region, which is in the south. Here you have the Atlantic Ocean surrounding it. Here you have, all here is what is water, because it's the delta of the river Niger. And in between all the states, you have water, streams all over. So it's a typical coastal region. In fact, scientists tell us that, or as it is now, that naturally this region is below the sea level. So if we are below the sea level, and we are talking about sea level rise, then you know that if nothing changes, if all what the scientists are telling us is true, in 25 years' time, when the temperature keeps on, the global temperature keeps on rising and the sea level keeps on rising, the whole of this area, will cease to exist because it will be taken over by water. I pray it won't be so, because that's where I'm from. So if water takes it over, then I'll have no state, I'll have no village, I'll have no place to go to. So I'm hoping that the sea level will not rise and take it over. This also, that's why I say the environment is already environmentally fragile. It's also the region where we have oil in Nigeria. This is the oil states. About the 9 states in this area are the oil-rich zone. We already have a lot of, this is oil, this is gas flaring, all this is oil, a lot of oil spillage all over. So the environment is already, should I say, damaged, even without the impact of climate change. Now add climate change to it. It gives you an idea of what is happening and what is going to happen. Please, I need your assistance.
Oh, just close.
I should close it. Okay. Okay, thank you. Now we are going to look at a short video of the work we carried out in southern Nigeria. Because scientists have told us to be flooding. They've told us increased storm. But are these things really happening? Is it really like that? Or are they just trying to frighten us? Are they trying to force us to change our lifestyles when we don't have to? Let's see whether it's really happening or not.
It has never been like this. There is a great deal more of unpredictability in what will happen. The projections show we're going to have more intense rainfall, which of course will have net consequences for erosion as well as for flooding. The south of Nigeria is dominated by closed forests and the coastal region.
There was a very serious windstorm which devastated most communities in the northern part of Cross River State.
If you watch the rain that was falling, it was as if it was in a row.
And we discovered that when we came to farm, the whole place was flooded.
This one I lost. All of them not damaged. The money when I borrow, they are bad. I will have now.
If you're going to pay school fees, no way. If you're going to buy dresses for their children, no way. So it's difficult. We don't know how to cope with it. Only God can say.
I am a fish buyer since 1997. That time we sold fish a kilo 150 naira. But this time we are selling 800 naira a kilo because they don't have enough cash again.
Before we catch very big ones. And now, when we catch now, see, even the very one where you see today, very small one like that.
The land, the shore, was about 10 kilometers from here. So you know what we have lost to the sea.
Well, sea level rise is one of the effects that will emanate from climate change.
From all the studies that have been modeled, should the case we are unfortunate to have a 2-meter rise in sea level, then Lagos will become issue.
It's too plenty here. It's too plenty here. Because about 5 days ago now, it was from about 2 days no stop.
We estimate that within a month, you could lose almost about 20 meters of beach. It's unbelievable. The erosion has a very devastating effect on the economy. Not only because impulse of valuable land, or houses being washed away, and land flooded as a result of inundation. There are a lot of very catastrophic effects which has a monetary value, very large monetary value.
There is a quote there that the cost to Nigeria for inundation of the coastal region should be about $9 billion US. If you want to talk in terms of the population that will be affected, the quarter of Nigeria's population lives in the coastal regions. 35 million people will be affected.
They know that the water level is not the same. They know that the harmattan is no longer coming when it used to come. They also know that even the sun is hotter than it used to be. But what is causing these changes is, where the problem is, where we need to create more awareness. Because a lot of them believe that it's because the gods are angry.
There was no rain. There was too much sun. So they have to go to the extent of calling a rainmaker. The amount they use in calling the rainmaker cost them about 40,000 naira.
In fact, a particular village we went to, the village head said that women are now doing things that they shouldn't be doing by tradition. For instance, his wife is now using his own buckets to bath. So there's a lot of ignorance about the causes of climate change. And of course, if they don't know what is causing climate change, it will be difficult to have an adaptation strategy that is sustainable.
What the BNRC is basically trying to do is to build Nigeria's capacity to adapt to climate change.
Adaptation is simply adjusting to cope with the present situation. We said that the climate is changing. If it's changing and it's affecting farming, it's affecting things, it's causing disasters, what adjustments can be made to be able to come to terms with these kinds of changes? That's what adaptation is all about.
I greet everybody. We get to know the NRCC. We need assistance from them so that we will not depend solely in the forest.
Because of the awareness we created in this community about the need for them to reduce their pressure on the wildlife, we introduced a snail farm to the community and also trained a number of community members to replicate this in their various homes.
The snail is an important animal, so it's an alternative for meat. Instead of hunting for meat, the best thing, you go into the forest looking for it. If you are able to come about so many, you can sell it and get the money.
A lot of wood is being extracted from the forest, so we introduce a fuel economy wood stove so that it will reduce the pressure for demand for fuel wood.
Since I've started using this eco stove, I don't have much firewood to consume. Because when I go to the farm one day to pick firewood out, it will serve me for over a week.
The fish ponds in the Esuki Debe and Akwa Esuki Yamba will help them to bring a kind of alternative source of fisheries. Since they depend on fishing mostly for livelihood, the men will go ahead with the cultivation and the women are on standby to do the marketing.
In Nicolebomita, where community members plant African bamboo to stabilize the soil and then prevents some portions of the community being swallowed up by advancing ravine.
Science has told us that if at so level of sea rise will be gone, then what you should do, even if it's not likely to happen, is to prepare yourself.
Basically, those blocks are the ice blocks that are used to protect, like rubble mounds on the beach, to protect the sandy shores from impact of the high waves.
Even if the factors which are causing climate change are stopped today, the effects will still continue for some time to come.
You can say there's already so much climate change in the air. That's why adaptation is important, and particularly so for countries that depend so much on weather for their economy.
Okay, from what we have seen so far, we've seen that in southern Nigeria, flooding is not just going to happen, it's already happening. We've also lost a lot of shore due to advancing ocean. We also have a lot of other plants that we did not know of initially, because of the change in the salinity of the water. You now have a lot of seaweeds taking over a lot of place, and of course when that happens, that it's going to affect aquatic life. We saw that woman that complained of the catch, that the fish is no longer the quantity and no longer the size that they used to have. So things are happening. The farmer, because of the changes in the climate, the yam farmer, we saw the loss. He was complaining that he borrowed money to do this. Now look at what has happened because of the change. Because yam has a particular temperature in which it survives. If it gets too high or if the water level is too much, it rots. And you cannot harvest it before it's matured. It's a root crop. So with the flooding, with the unexpected downpour, you saw that man was complaining that it rained continuously for 2 days. And where I'm from, in Akwa Ibom State, at times it rains for a week. Yeah, it rains for a week. When you think the rain is about to stop, it's like it just wakes up and starts all over again. Then imagine that with poor infrastructure, poor drainage and all that. So it's a real serious problem. Well, let's move quickly to northern Nigeria and see if it is different. You see, the interesting thing about Nigeria is that when they say climate change is going to have differential impact on different people, that some places it will be dry, some places it will be flooded, We have both scenario in Nigeria. We have both the flood and we also have the heat. So let's move down to northern Nigeria and see what is happening there.
Shi ba sa yi sosai sai tukun za ka gani wa'ansu su ware wa'ansu su mutu ma ba ruwan sama sosai ba yi ruwan sama ba zai yi ba sosai.
The same thing, whether now weather or like of module now from headquarters, I don't know that one again. Only thing when I know, heat and the hard thing.
The weather that occurs every day, which we see whether it rains or it doesn't rain, is an average condition on a short time scale. And if you aggregate this weather over a long period of time, you begin to describe the climate of an area. If you have observed any changes in the average now climate conditions, we begin to talk about climate variation and or climate change.
Ngao bande ke paro bande kura kama ngao soro ga harche na kaska koka ngao soro ga hana je ko oro koja kala ng binani de na pe medo kama kangara de pokcha ne binala ag kharam
Kuat dai akai ma ka tel rumsuna kuat diri walai kura dai ko na ka di wa mun da walai ale wahala ne ai kama ba kwandu ba ja wahala na awa dina ko boy na do no to kure ke ba wai kuma ba ko ya ne do ne le kana do ne ka ba waje le da uma da wuro.
Well, Tosha is a town in the Sahel, at the extreme end of the Sahel, and they are suffering from an acute problem of wind erosion that is evidenced by sand dunes, and the life is very difficult, rain is very unreliable. Life in Tosha is dependent largely on the oases. The oases, because of climate change, some of them have dried up. So if the oasis becomes continuously unproductive, the sand dunes will now take over the oasis because the old trees would have died, the old dam palms would have died, and nothing else will wage the sand dunes.
The dry season in the north of the country starts in November and ends around March. During this dry season, we have a lot of dust raised from the Sahara Desert. That fine dust is carried aloft, and they have to be deposited somewhere. Where are they deposited? Other part of the country.
Zafi ya fi na da duka. A wannan shekaran ma ya fi na da. Shekara 25 na fara aikin nan gurin. To da ina jan ruwa a hannu nake bayi da dabinonin nan da komi da komi. To wa'anda suka rashin lafiya suka warke sun kai 10, amma rashin lafiyan ma da akwai. Daya za ka gani suna zazzabi, ko na kaɗan za ka ga gashin ya tashi.
Particularly this year, in January we have very high temperatures already. We are looking at things more 40 degrees. I mean, more than 40 degrees. And this year, I don't know, we saw 46, somewhere in Maiduguri. In April, we now observe even much higher values, staying longer. In Maiduguri, we had 40 degrees and above for virtually the whole of April. And what does that mean? It means that the environment in that area developed in excessive temperature and serious heat wave. Serious heat wave.
He is hungry. And also it's not well, because of that he cannot eat the food well. Because of the difficulty of paying the money, the farmers they cannot have enough money to treat the animal. In this year we have a dry season and high heat. Many of the animals are dying when it's not green.
Araha ake sayarwa, araha saboda baki ba koshi, wata ma a kwanci za a sayar da ita. Wata a kwanci ma za a sayar, kuɗi kaɗan. Saniyar da za ka sayar 50,000 sai ka zo kana sayar da ita 10,000 da kyar. Yawa, wata a kwanci ma akwai bambanci. Da can akwai abinci akwai kuma ruwa, amma yanzu babu ruwa babu abinci. Saboda rashin yawan ruwa na damina da yawa sosai, shi ya kawo karancin abinci.
Akwai canji mai ɗanbin yawa makwa, saboda lokacin da muka taso muka dawo nan a wannan lokacin kamar shekara kusan 25 baya haka, akwai rijiyoyinmu ma abin ɗarewa kawai ke sa a ɗebo saboda ruwan sama. Saboda haka ƙasar kanta kusan ta fara gajiya da abubuwa, shi sa nake ganin amfanin baya kaiwa.
The time I came here, first the weather is a little bit better than now. No dryness, no hot, no all these kind of things. But now the weather has changed. Even at this time, look at how the sun gets so hot, no rain. Yesterday it rained, but still look at this in the morning, how the sun just gets so hot.
muka noma kamar shinkafa da albasa da masara. To amma sakamakon yanayi na ruwan sama matsaloli ya zo ya shiga zukatan mutane saboda shinkafar ba ta yi sosai saboda karanci na ruwan sama. Ita kanta albasar saboda aiki ne wadda dole sai ka sa kamar su matsalar fertilizer da waye nan ma duk an samu matsala ta rayuwa. To duka abubuwan baya isar mutane yadda za su biya bukatar su taimaka wani, su ma da kyar suke haihuwa da dafe-dafe mutum zai shekara yanzu halin da muke ciki ke.
The areas of Sokoto, Zamfara, Kano, Katsina, Yobe, and Borno states are bordering Niger Republic, and they definitely have not more than 3 or 4 months of rainfall, each year. Lack of rainfall in the north affects the agriculture, affects the animal husbandry, affects the people.
The heat is all over, but especially now the one of Meduguri is too hot. The weather of this Meduguri is hotter than any other places. All the food, all the things they planted, all died in the farm. So no better growth. So all died. So for this things become cost in the market. You cannot buy.
I came to this Meduguri 1974, December 15. Since I came this town, now only heat, so heat. Even though rain fall, no more than 4 times a year. Let's say I never see any rain where it fall here too. Where something do it not be like our own body. Because when breeze come, you will spend like 2 hours, 1 hour. But rain, why you just they do like that? Only 10 minutes or 15 minutes, don't go. From 1998, then I started to seek kidney problem. So when heat starts, they used to rush me to hospital every year. This year is the worst, more than any year.
Well, I'm going to stop it, but the video, I'll leave the video with Dr. Mohammed, so you can go through all of it. But so that we can have time for questions and other things, I'm going to stop it and then move on to the next slide.
It was so overwhelming to see like the volume of patients in 1 year.
Okay, so this picture was taken in Tusha, in northern Nigeria. We saw a little bit of this, in the video. That is sand dune taking over residential houses. Look at that. All those things you're seeing there used to be people's houses. This used to be somebody's house. But the sand is taking over everything. And they've had to move further in, looking for, where to stay. From the video, we've also seen that the temperature keeps on going up and up and up. I don't know how many of us here will survive if we suddenly have a temperature of 46 degrees Celsius. What's the highest temperature in summer? Sorry? In summer when it's really hot, what's the temperature? 36? Okay? So imagine what 46 degrees Celsius will be, and then having that for a whole month. And when it's not usually like that. So in Maiduguri, during the period of this study, they had 46 degrees Celsius for the whole of April. Crops died, animals died, human beings died. There was increase in kidney problems. I know when it's that hot, you need to drink a lot of water, but there was no water to drink. They are complaining of the wells drying up. The woman there said when she moved to that place about 25 years back, the well, the groundwater that they were using, you could put your hand there and just take out, just put your bucket and take out water. But now it's no longer there. If you go to the wells in the north, they are really very deep. You need to use very long rope to be able to get out water from it, because the wells are drying up. So climate change is real. The impact is real. It's happening. It's affecting both the coasts. It's also affecting the Sahel areas. We've seen the implications for subsistence farming. We know that in Africa, most of our farming is rain-fed. We depend on natural resources. Very small percentage, depend on irrigation or commercial agriculture. Most of the things we produce is for home consumption. Then whatever is left is taken to the market. So the primary aim for the 80% of farmers in Nigeria, who are mainly women, is for home consumption, not for the market. Then with declining rainfall and all that, you see that there's increase in competition for natural resources. There's been escalation in conflicts between Fulani herdsmen and sedentary farmers because of the effect of the cattle going through fields looking for something to eat. Cattle moving from the north to the south, where there's a lot of water and there's green, looking for what to eat, and they go through people's farms, and it's been causing a lot of conflicts. So climate change is also leading to escalation in conflicts. Apart from the hunger, apart from the dryness, apart from the diseases, it's causing escalation in conflicts. One other aspect that we need to talk about before I conclude is the gender dynamics in climate change. How does it affect the gender? How does climate change affect women? How does it affect men? Does it have the same kind of impact on both men and women, or is it different? We know traditionally we have a lot of socioeconomic situations that do not put women and men at par when it comes to access and control over resources. Climate change is aggravating this. I've stopped using "is going to" because it's already happening. So climate change is aggravating it, and then the impact will continue to increase as the climate, as we refuse to change our lifestyles and continue to do the things we are doing the way we are doing. It will continue to aggravate it. Women are the poorest in the world. Over the years, there've been, feminization of poverty. When you're talking about the poor, women unfortunately occupy a disproportionate percentage of the poor. And the situation is no different in Nigeria. Women are amongst the poorest of the population. And we've been told by experts that climate change will have more negative impact on the poor. So if it's going to have more negative impact on the poor, then you can be sure that it's going to have more negative impact on women than on men. Climate change will also affect food. And 80% of food crop farmers in Africa and in Nigeria are women. 90% of food crop processors are women. And 90% of the people that sell food crop are women. So if climate change is having negative impact on these sectors of our lives, then you know that it's going to impact more negatively on women than on men. In most communities in Africa, women and girls are directly responsible for fetching water for household use and sanitation. We saw, I don't think you saw any man in any of those videos carrying water on his head or fetching water for the family, but you saw women carrying water. It's, you know, traditionally it's the responsibility of women to provide that. So if water is scarce, if there's no water anywhere, what do you think happens? Women will have to travel longer distances looking for water for the family, and this exposes them to other risks and also limits the time they have for themselves to socialize and to do other things. Women are also the caregivers. If there's going to be increment in sicknesses and diseases, women will have to be the ones to take care of the sick, even to their own detriment. So it's impacting more on women than on men. The little income that women had from selling whatever left over from their crop, which will give them access to other things or give them control over other resources, they no longer have that because the crops are destroyed. Women will also be the ones to stay back at home and take care of the children when the men migrate and go and look for greener pastures. And in the process of going for greener pastures, if they get entangled with another woman and forget about the woman in the house, or they come back with STDs or with AIDS, it's the woman in the house that will bear the brunt of all of it. So you see that climate change will have a differential impact on men and women, and it will impact more negatively on women than on men.
Climate change, not global, not warming or cooling, just change. Yeah.
Just change, because the change is due to the global warming.
No. Global warming maybe doesn't exist. Yesterday did you read from Google information, the co-founder Greenpeace resigned and said that no scientific proof of global warming. Nobody calculated.
So maybe she can finish her presentation and you can ask a question.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, if you know some calculation.
So what adaptation measures have we taken so far in Nigeria to be able to adjust to the impact of climate change? Because whether we like it or not, even with very effective mitigation measures, we still need to adjust to the changes that have already happened. From the two clips that we watched, we've seen that in Nigeria we have developed what we call a national adaptation strategy, which include the development of early warning system for floods, droughts, or fires, to help populations anticipate and prepare for the occurrence of extreme events. We've also, improved on the irrigation and the infrastructure, drainage. There's been a lot of improvement over the years on that. A lot of the coastal states are now having these embankments to be able to check the sea level rise to make sure that it doesn't go beyond, certain positions, position. And then we're also trying to create a lot of climate change awareness amongst the people, especially amongst the rural people, because they will be the ones that will be more affected than those that can easily fly out of the country and go to some other place where they are not having as much impact. So we're trying to create a lot of awareness, and then we're also trying to introduce some alternative livelihood activities, so that the farmers would not depend solely on rain-fed agriculture. That's where the issue of snail farming, fish pond, the honey. If you finish looking at the other video in northern Nigeria, we're also introducing beekeeping so they can have honey and sell during the dry season. So we're introducing a lot of other livelihood activities that are not dependent on rain. These are not enough. We still need more adaptation. We still need a lot of other measures, to be able to help. We need to implement the National Adaptation Strategy because it's not just sufficient to have a strategy. The implementation is very important. In a lot of time, after going through a lot of work, this work took 5 years. After a lot of work and all the stakeholder validation and everything, you come out with a very fat document and you submit it to the government, and it just ends on somebody's shelf and never gets implemented. So it's important that we implement this. Already we are making progress towards this because we now have a national, the National Assembly passed a law, on the climate change, and we now have a climate change unit within the Federal Ministry of Environment. But that is not sufficient. We still need to go further than that so that this is implemented. I don't know of any city-level food storage capacity, or we need to start storing food. Instead of just depending on, if you come to Nigeria, discover that during the harvest, you have food all over the place, a lot of food, but it's not being stored. And during the dry season, when people are planting, there's so much hunger, and you'll be wondering whatever happened to the food that we had surplus, So we need to start having a culture of storage, keeping some away, like what was done in Egypt during the time of Joseph, keeping some away so that during the period of hunger, when the climate is really affecting us, we can go back to our storehouses and get something to eat. We also need to stick strictly to cities' master plans and approved building standards. We need to start, especially in the coastal zones, we need to start, raising the foundation of the buildings so that when the flood comes, it won't just, gouge in just like that. We need to stick strictly to, to the building plan. Not that because somebody has money or has power, you now go and build on a drainage path, which, is happening a lot. So we need, to improve on that. In conclusion, I would like to say that climate change impact does not discriminate according to the depth and size of your pockets. It does not discriminate even according to, your sex, your race, your beliefs, your sexual orientation, or how developed your infrastructures are, or whatever other criteria we may want to use. I don't need to remind us of the impact of Katrina, of Sandy, and even of recent, the flood that we had in the UK, that over 1,000 people, were displaced from their homes. Scientists have told us that 95% of what is happening is caused by human beings. And that industrialized nations in North America, China, and Europe are the main culprits. Scientists have also told us that the whole of Africa contributes just less than 2% to the global emission that is causing, the change. So it is time we all become climate smart by forcing our governments at all levels to make climate smart decisions and policies. It is time to stop the rhetoric that has characterized the UN Climate Change Conference year in, year out. The earth is in your hands. Turn off the heat. Thank you.
Questions?
Always heat was in Africa, yeah? There was no discussing about warming up or cooling down. Because you said about methods, storage of food and something which is used in our world, yeah? Because you're from Africa, yeah?
Yeah, I'm from Africa, but I don't think I got your. I live in Africa.
Oh, okay.
I'm from Nigeria and I live in Nigeria. And I don't think I got your question, please.
No, my question is simple. Because you said, take off a heat, you want a cold Africa like we have winter now in New York? Or something like this? Because what you said about storage of food and something, this is organization of modern state. Of course, Africa is not in this stage. Africa is like in 19th century, I think, was Europe. Under storage of food, energy, power, distribution, and, of course, political modern state. Do you agree with me?
I'm not sure I'm following your line of thinking, or maybe because you didn't come at the beginning of the presentation, I'm not sure I'm following your line of... There's a hand there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was well agreed fact, scientific fact, that there is a global war.
No, it's not scientific.
There is a debate about that, yes.
No,
but
yesterday I said.
Yeah, but there is global warming, and then global warming will affect mostly Africa. Yes, Africa is a hot tropical area. That is fine. But she said something which is unusual. She said that now the temperature there, sometimes it is 60 degrees Celsius. Degrees Celsius, that means what? If you compare it with here, it is like the summer, 180. Like something like that, 180 million that you are living in temperature. And then specifically Africa was being pointed out as a place where it's going to be affected by climatic change because of the rise of temperature. And they calculated in general that it is going to be 2%. Only 2% is going to change the climate, because in the past, that is an average. In the past, only 1% have changed the whole climate and created a lot of problems.
So you have proved that last few hundred years or 1,000
There is
years
a lot of proof. There is a lot of
temperature in
There is
Africa.
a lot of literature now. If you can see right now in the Arctic Circle that is there, all of the ice which is accumulated there for thousands of years, all of the ice accumulated for thousands and millions of years, now is melting. That causes the rise of the sea, like what she said.
No.
Okay, thank you. Let me come in here.
Melting of ice.
Thank you. Let me come in here,
down.
please. Excuse me.
We can discuss it later, but this is a debate, and we are gonna.
Excuse me. Let me come in here. You see, the truth is, even if we do not have global warming, what is the definition of climate change? We are told that when you have the average change in the average temperature, the average rainfall of an area, the precipitation, over a period of 10 years, when it has, we've noticed that difference. In this, my presentation, in Africa, we've had those changes. Whether it's caused by global warming or global cooling or whatever it is, the fact is that climate has changed in Nigeria, and it is having a negative impact on us in Nigeria. I live in Nigeria. I was born there, I was bred there, I've lived there all my life, and after this I'm going to go back there so I know what is happening there. I did rural sociology, so I work mainly with people in the rural areas. I come from a rural area. We have a house in the rural area. I'm familiar with the rural terrain. And I interact with the people there, and I know that they know that things have changed. They don't know what is causing the change. Scientists are telling us that it's because of global warming. We don't know what is causing the change, but we know that things have changed. We know that the rain no longer comes when it used to come. We know that the sun is now more frequent than it used to be and more hotter than it was. We also know that when we go to the well to fetch water, that we used to we used to put bucket and just take the water out. But now the water is no longer there. We also know that in northern part of Nigeria, the sand dunes are coming and taking over all, people's houses, and people have now had to be moving away and looking for other places. Whether it is global warming or global cooling, we know that the climate has changed and is having negative impact on us. I just want us to go with that idea, knowing that The climate in Nigeria has changed. It's no longer what it used to be. The indigenous people know that these changes are occurring. They don't know what is causing the changes. The scientists from the West are telling us that it is because of global warming, because of emission, and we agree with them because we do not have the facility and the capacity to tell them it is not so. And then we also know that the West is responsible, more responsible for the warming because the whole of Africa contributes just 2% of the gases that cause this. When we did a presentation at Bronx Community College, the students there, they said they have an instrument which they use to test the level of these gases, even within the Bronx area. So it's possible to study it. And we know that these gases actually lead to warming. And like Mohammed added, we also know that because of this warming, the ice that we had in the Arctic is melting.
Yeah.
And the melting is affecting everybody.
Why?
That's not my area, so I don't know why.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Here at Hunter, we have student groups. We have students who study this topic. We have student groups that are activists in trying to change policy in the city and in the country. And I was just wondering if you could talk about students or faculty at universities in Nigeria or activist movements that are contributing to these changes that you discussed in maybe policy or other areas?
Well, I don't know such groups among the students, but I know that amongst the researchers, you know, we've had a lot of activism in that area, trying to create awareness, trying to mount pressure on the government to be, you know, to go green. And then one of the real serious areas that we've had issues with is in the petroleum industry, you know, because there's still a lot of gas flaring, and there's been a lot of pressure on the government to stop it, and somehow they keep on shifting the deadline for it, and there's been a lot of spillage and all that. But I don't know of any student group that is pursuing that. But I know that there's a number of NGOs that have youths as their members that are pushing for that. Yes.
Two short questions. How far back in time do temperature and precipitation records go in Nigeria? In other parts of the world, in parts of Europe, goes back over 200 years. Here, 100, 150 years. Second question, what's the coastline of Nigeria like? Is it uninterrupted, or do you have barrier beach islands as we have here on the Atlantic shore of the United States?
Well, we don't have, let me start from the second question. We don't have islands as such, but in the coast area, we are surrounded with water. We have the Atlantic, you know, from Lagos up to down to the southeast, and then we have, let me go back to that map. Okay, we have here the whole of this. This is Lagos State here. All down, Lagos is in the southwest, all down to the south, the southeast, all of that is surrounded by water. Then in between this is the River Benue, and then here is River Niger. It goes down here, here. So all of this place, all of this is surrounded by water.
So it would be something like the Mississippi Delta, something like that.
Well, maybe. Then this first question you asked, that how far back the temperature and precipitation. Well, I don't really have that figure right now, what it used to be, but I know that because...
Just how far back in time? How long have you been collecting records?
I know for 79, we started, you know, that's when we started being sensitized about the thing. So since 1979, we've been trying to monitor the changes.
My question is about the northern region and the sand dunes. Does anyone up there track the wind speeds? And has there ever been a haboob, which is a huge dust storm with basically they're considered gale force winds that have, and my question is, are the people working together to build stronger infrastructures for their homes? Because you mentioned in the third to the last slide about how one of the things that they want to work towards is making better structures to withhold dealing with these climate changes.
Well, climate change adaptation require a lot of money.
Yeah.
And most of those people, most of the places we went to are villages.
Mm-hmm.
They are subsistence farmers. So for them to be able to build better structures, they will definitely need external intervention, which the project we handled did not have the capacity to do. But what we tried to encourage them to do was to plant trees, to be able to reclaim the sand dunes, and which is ongoing. We started doing that. So those places, there's some crops, some trees that grow very fast and even in dry areas. So they were given the seedlings and encouraged to plant that. And then some of them were even given reward for planting and showing that they are planting. So the essence is to reclaim to reclaim the sand dune, not necessarily to build better structure. You can build better structure today and the sand keeps on coming, that structure is going to fall after a while. So for a more sustainable thing, let it be something that they can afford and something that's, would change the environment.
One last question.
I'm interested in the building of like local sustainable economies with like beekeeping and snail farms and things. Are those specific groups that are going and doing that? Are they like internal from Nigeria? Are they like NGOs from the West coming in and teaching communities other things they can do to produce income so that they can purchase whatever types of food they can't produce themselves? Do you know who's kind of spearheading those types of local economical projects?
For this particular project, the BNLCC project, we were the ones doing it. The team, we had a number of NGOs, that were in partnership with NEST. So we have NGOs that's their area, they handled that. I was mainly involved in the research aspects of the work, but we had people that were involved in teaching them alternative livelihoods.
Now, 35 years, you can say, because you collect data on, as Professor asked, 35 years, you can say that, some fluctuation. I think that most important problem of Africa is, like she said, infrastructure and repeat. This is make a modern tools as we have here, and this will be not about. This is not about climate change up or down. Of course, if you can better attract money, talking like this is a good idea too. But it's not about climate change.
Well, thank you. You know that in any society, you don't have just one way to solving a problem or one cause of a problem. It's always multifaceted. Today, we are looking at the impact of climate change. Africa has other issues and other problems, which was not what we addressed today. But that climate change is impacting negatively on Africa is not a contestable fact, because it is a fact. I'm in it, I've experienced it. You are not there, and I know what I'm talking about. I'm there. So I'm speaking from experiential knowledge, not from theoretical knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.